And thanks for staying with us here on News Central's Breakfast Central. We are indeed excited. It's Friday. Well, let's take off in Zimbabwe. Well, Zimbabwe and Nigeria seem to have a lot in common. Well, let's tell you what it is. Zimbabwe will soon adopt a law that will make it unlawful for other countries to hire its health staff, according to the vice president of the country, Constantino Chiwenga. Now, here's what we know about what the vice president, who also doubles as the Minister of Health, has to say. So let's take a look at it very quickly. Well, the Vice President and the Health Minister, Mr. Chiwenga, says the disappearance of medical personnel is equivalent to human trafficking, and on Wednesday he announced harsher punishments for individuals who, in his opinion, had robbed the country of its human capital.
Mr. Chiwenga said if one deliberately recruits and makes the country suffer, that's a crime against humanity. People are dying in hospitals because there are no nurses and doctors, and that must be taken seriously. Since February 2021, an unverified report in the Zimbabwe media says that more than 4,000 nurses and doctors have departed Zimbabwe. Verified reports, according to the Zimbabwe Medical Association, estimates that there are approximately 3,500 doctors in the nation, which has a population of 15 million. We also know that Zimbabwe has been included on the World Health Organization's red list, which is reserved for nations with major health staff issues. Due to this, the UK last month stopped hiring Zimbabwean healthcare professionals. That's a very interesting update there. And this is not the first time that we've seen this conversation. Even as far back as recent as 2022, there had been conversations about Zimbabwe and the healthcare professionals. What we did see is you would not see anybody who is comfortable in their country with their jobs seeking to run away and look for supposed greener pastures. The major reason why we've seen that a lot of healthcare professionals are leaving in their numbers would be because they want better healthcare conditions. They want for their health to be prioritized. They want to have the decent equipment to be able to practice out their trade or their responsibilities, to be able to carry them out and to be able to take care of themselves. The cost of living has been inflated. The economy in Zimbabwe has been hanging on a thread, and these people need to be able to survive. So you then saying to them that they cannot go out to look for better opportunities. I mean, I don't know how a lot of them will take that.
Well, don't forget too that the United Kingdom had made open its doors to medical health care workers, and that's why you had a lot of them troop out en masse to ensure that they can get to the UK. Reasons? Well, you could say better pay, more respect for the doctors. And don't forget, the same Zimbabwe earlier this year, sometime in February, and not forgetting to last year, had medical practitioners go on strike. Initially, they had put out laws that would ensure that the medical practitioners do not have the right to go on strike, meaning that they do not have the right to protest or to engage in any form of calling out the government, especially when it had to do with an increment. But we do understand that an increment has indeed been done. There's a review, but the most important conversation at this moment is the fact that the Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga, who also doubles as the Health Minister, is saying that they are mitigating, or rather they are putting in place bills or a bill that will stop health workers from indeed leaving the country.
Well,
there's something similar as well to West Africa, right. So possibly when we get to that hour.
I don't know how well this would fare. I was reading accounts of two different women who shared their stories, who were healthcare professionals in Zimbabwe. What we did see was that a number of them leave Zimbabwe to accept menial jobs in the UK because, according to the reports, what they earn is 10 times higher than what they earn in Zimbabwe. So you can't tell someone. So, there's a person who shared his experience and said that the first time he got his paycheck in the UK, it felt like a dream because he would never have dared to imagine that he would be able to earn that whilst working in Zimbabwe. So they've cited, low wages. They've cited equipment, not having proper equipment as part of the reasons why they're leaving. And rather than trying to put an embargo on or trying to restrict these professionals from going to seek greener pastures, I think a better alternative would be to work on ways to improve the healthcare sector, ways to improve the economy, and at least offer them something competitive, give them an offer they can't refuse. So
hopefully we get to that point. But I think it's a conversation that we are willing to take on here in News Central. Why is the African medical systems, or better still, not doing so well? And why is it that you have the leaders who are indeed leaving Africa and going out of the shores of Africa to get perfection or treatments, especially from the medical practitioners who are outside of Africa, who are still Africans?
Yes, I was going to say that. We've seen several cases where people leave here to go and carry out a procedure in the UK, in US, in Turkey, or wherever, and they get there and they see that the doctor is an African doctor. These are the conversations that we'll be having. We'll be having Darren Bartlett join us now as we go through some of the biggest stories happening across East Africa. Good morning, Darren, and thank you for joining us. You've heard the story. We're seeing healthcare professionals living in their numbers, and we're seeing that Zimbabwe is making moves to make it illegal for its healthcare professionals to be hired outside Zimbabwe. How possible or how logical is that move? And do you see it holding water?
It doesn't hold water to begin with. First of all, the Zimbabwe economy is not doing well, like you said. And anybody who has gone to Zimbabwe before, you'll notice that this is a country that uses about 4 currencies. That means their currency itself doesn't hold anything. You'll find a Botswana pound there. You'll find the South African rand operating in Zimbabwe. I mean, a country that has 4 currencies, it simply means that their currency doesn't have that much value. And not only in Zimbabwe, but in other parts of Africa, most medical doctors are leaving the country for greener pastures because of pay. And even speaking here in Uganda and Kenya and Rwanda itself, had their doctors go on strike because they wanted more money. They were facing a lot of, there's a lot of pressure from them. And there are very, very, very few people or students who are taking on science subjects and interesting themselves in the medical field. That piles more pressure on the professionals who are already in the field because they have to deal with so many. You find that one doctor, even in Zimbabwe, and there's a statistic that I actually read that that was showing that one doctor attends to about 2,000 patients in Zimbabwe. That's quite a lot of pressure.
Quite sad. Well, anyway, let's get into it now. It's time for East African Roundup, and you are indeed set. Let's begin in Rwanda first off, where President Paul Kagame, his recent re-election as chairman of the ruling party. Now, Rwandese Patriotic Front has sparked discussions as well about the future of the country's political leadership. Now, following his victory at the 16th Congress, President Kagame announced his intention to retire from politics. And I like the fact that I said he wants to be a journalist. I mean, anyway, let me let that slide. Darren, go ahead and tell us all about it.
Well, Paul Kagame is a lawyer by profession. That's what he studied. And most lawyers actually become good journalists because they ask the right questions. I am a lawyer by profession, but...
Oh, hello, Leonard, colleague. I'm just finding that out.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, it's okay.
For quite a... I don't get what?
Joe feels left out because he's not a Leonard colleague, but it's okay. We can
you will get there. You will get there. It's easy to get in there. So, but he is a very analytical guy when it comes to issues of the country of Rwanda. We know today they actually celebrate, the day marks 29 years since the genocide broke out, and when you look at where the people of Rwanda are coming from to always trust Kagame with leadership is because of his participation. Of course, he was part of the RPF who took over Rwanda from the genocide they were in and made it a place where it is today. But since since he became the leader of Rwanda in 2000, yes, they had a constitution that was available that gave a president a term of 7 years, but for only 2 years, and then eventually it was amended because his party felt that he still has more work to do for the country, and they changed the constitution to a 5-year term, which enabled him to stand as a president again in 2017. And here we are, and the party goes back and says, I think we still need Paul Kagame to become the leader of the party, the RPF, which is available. They are giving him about 2,999 votes. That is 99% of the votes that were cast, and his closest contender, I don't know why we would use the word closest, but anyway, he's his closest contender, who had Abdul Karim, who had only 3 votes, which is 0.2%. But the party, the party is delighted to have him as the leader because they think where they have come from and where the country is going, attracting so many business partners, promoting their tourism, having so many innovations going in through the country, they still think that Paul Kagame has a vision for the country, and that they still believe they can push him to stand the same way they pushed him to stand again for presidency in 2017. They believe that they can still convince him to become a president. I mean, he desires to retire, like he says in his statements. However, when we track back his statements a little bit a while ago, he said this is a discussion that is ongoing within the party. So whatever the party will decide, that's what he will go with. The same way the party decided some time back that he should stand again for presidency for the next 2 terms, that's what he went with. So is it about him or is it about the party? If it's about him, I would expect President Paul Kagame to say, the party needs to find another leader because I want to retire. So every time a leader leaves the question of succession to the party, we've seen this in Uganda, it always comes back to the same president, an incumbent standing for presidency. So we cannot guarantee that President Paul Kagame is not going to stand, but at least it kind of sends some signal to the opposition that exists that at one time I am going to leave power. At least there's that sign that one day, one time, he's going to leave power as the president of Kagame. That when is a big question, which may not come very soon, in my view.
All right, very interesting update there. Let's see what eventually happens as regards his office. And I mean, you've raised some very important points as regards leaving, when we leave the conversations about succession.
Let me add this, just for context.
Okay.
Let's consider the party as a football club. And every time they say, we still need this coach to do a good job for us, or this is the player we need to be in the defense, that's what they'll keep choosing the same player all the time. So it's about the club. It's not about the player. If the club is tired of the player, they let him go. So that's the party. The party is saying, oh, no, we need our man. He's going to be here. And he says, oh, I respect people's decision. If they feel, and that's democracy. If the people still want me, I am going to stay.
That's another level of democracy that we actually probably didn't think about. By the end of the day, it is really the government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's what the people really want. Let's move away from Rwanda to what's happening the Iron Sheet scandal has been a conversation that has been making the newspaper front pages. There's a report that the government-run newspaper in South Sudan recently published reports on the diversion of the Iron Sheets intended for vulnerable individuals in the Karamoja region. Now, we heard that the materials were instead distributed to a village and to government officials, including the Prime Minister and the Speaker of Parliament. There's also reports that this development led the minister responsible for Karamoja, Honorable Goreti Kitutu, to be charged with abuse of office and appear in court. I hear that she would be most likely spending the Easter in jail behind bars, right? Talk to us about what this means for the people of Karamoja and the government of Uganda, and what really the way forward is.
There's a mixed feeling in the people, because especially the people from the region of Karamoja who believe that they have been denied development for a very long time. And it's not the first time. There are some funds that were meant for Karamoja region which never made it there. There were some goats that were purchased to resettle people in Karamoja. The Karamojong people are nomadists. They believe in trading, in cattle keeping, and there's a time they practiced cattle raiding around the region, which was very insecure for other countries in the neighborhood. And that's how President Yoweri Museveni decided that we need to resettle the people of Karamoja and give them more to do with. First of all, they need to, if they believe that all the cows that are in the region belong to them, we need to give them more, like maybe goats, and take away the guns that they had. And they give them cows and goats and took away the guns that they had that were using to raid other neighbors. But also there was a promise to resettle them so that they can settle in particular places, hence giving them iron sheets, or promising them iron sheets, because the iron sheets are not there. Even if I say give them, they're not there. So they promised them iron sheets so that they can build modern houses, and they settle in their lives. But these iron sheets, ever since the promise was made, never made it. What happened? The state minister in charge of Karamoja affairs just got these iron sheets distributed to her village through her brother. Her mother received the iron sheets and also gave some of these iron sheets to the speaker, the prime minister, and other ministers, who said that they don't know how these iron sheets found their way to their homes. Quite funny, I know. But I mean, this is what they keep saying. So the minister refused to record a statement to police and the parliament. She refused to give her statement under oath. And that prompted the parliament to say, let her go to prison and she'll be delivered to court to be tried for abuse of office and causing loss for people's property. She appeared yesterday in court and she was denied bail, and they said they will hear the bail application again on 12th April. She is not the first minister to be charged. Many of them have been there, but the mixed feeling in people is if she took the iron sheets and distributed it to other ministers, high government officials like the Speaker and the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and many more, all of those have to be brought to book. All of them have to be brought to face justice. I mean, because if you know that the property you've taken does not belong to you, they should have a sense to question and say, I am receiving iron sheets that are clearly marked that these iron sheets go to Karamoja region. They actually have a stamp. And this is how they found out. The State House anti-corruption team went and pretended to be clients were buying these iron sheets from the brother and the mother of the state minister for Karamoja Affairs, and they clearly had a mark for Karamoja. Now, if the other government officials received these iron sheets, they should have questioned themselves and said, why am I receiving iron sheets that are clearly labeled for Karamoja? Assuming, or imagine you go to a supermarket and you're buying cooking oil and it's written on USA. Would you buy it? That's the thing. But people continue to buy it and distribute it. That means the person who got it into that supermarket, who distributed it, is a scam, or most probably stole that oil and is selling it, yet it's supposed to be given out for free. That is the same situation here that is happening to the minister. So yeah, she's in prison, but fellow ministers who come from the same region, that is the Bugisu region, feel like she's a sacrificial lamb. Like
I was going to ask.
There are very many more people who are involved in this, but she's the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because we've seen Robert Kiangulai, I believe, that's Bobby Wine, saying that this is just a smoke screen, and he's pointed fingers at the government and talked about the president rather, and members of his cabinet, and saying that there are lots of them that should be behind bars, not just this woman, and that this is just a smoke screen. I also wanted to quickly ask, as quickly as possible, if you can answer this for us, what are the chances of, do the people of Uganda see this as a form of compensation? Are they excited about this? Do they think that this matter will be seen to the very end? Because this is the first time since, I believe, 2007 that we've seen a government official of this ranking, a high government or high-profile government individual, being brought before the courts. So do the people of Uganda trust that this matter will be seen to a finish, seen to the very end? Or do they think that's something that maybe might be covered up in the end, or covered up rather?
They definitely believe that this process, especially when it comes to Margaret Kitutu, who is the honorable minister, being in jail, that will happen because the main prison, the government prison, actually has some more government officials who are still in prison today for, again, abuse of office. The question and where people question this whole thing is, she reports to a prime minister who also received the iron sheets, okay? And they think that the supervising officer, who is the prime minister, who knew about these iron sheets and went ahead and received these iron sheets and took them to her constituency, should also be liable, because they believe she's the person who's supposed to be signing off these iron sheets. She's the first person who should be holding the minister accountable and ask questions like, where are the iron sheets? Were the iron sheets delivered to the people who are supposed to receive them? Such important questions. But she went ahead and received the iron sheets and claims that the iron sheets were just given to her, and then the PS called her and gave her the iron sheets, and she took them to her region and then distributed them to the schools that needed to be roofed in a different region that is not Karamoja. So
and these iron sheets were marked, right?
They were marked, and that's the question. So you cannot say that I am reporting to you, but you don't know what I am doing with the iron sheets. It doesn't make sense. So they believe that all the ministers that were involved, including the minister in charge of East African Affairs, the former Speaker of Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament, the Minister of Finance, who actually signed off the supplementary budgets to buy those iron sheets, all of them should be answerable to these iron sheets. They should all be in court. But well, unfortunately, they're not.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Darren. Great reviews and so on and so forth. Well, let's see what comes out of this. Hopefully, when you join us next week, Friday, we'll get a detailed report of what went down, who else has been indicted, and who has been arrested. Thank you for joining us at Breakfast Central this morning.
Enjoy your day and enjoy your long Easter holiday.
Thank you.
No holidays for journalists.
Oh, yeah.
We're back on Monday.
Come on.